Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming here. It's a beautiful, bright day, isn't it? Yeah, it's really beautiful. I'm really glad that you're all here to celebrate the life of Peg Tomm. She's meant so much to this congregation, and I'm assuming she's meant so much to you. And I'm really glad that you can be here to share in some of the musical pieces she enjoyed, readings that Erica, her daughter, picked out, and to maybe hear a bit more about the great life she led. There is going to be a reception downstairs afterward. There also is going to be a memorial book downstairs where you're welcome to put a note. That's going to be immediately following service. There's cookies, coffee, lovingly prepared by people. So please join us immediately afterward for that. So now join me as we celebrate the life of Peg Tomm. And please rise for one of her favorite hymns found in the gray hymnal. It's hymn 55, Dark of Winter. 55 in the gray hymnal. This is a reading that Erica McCracken, her daughter, found, called Weep Not For Me. Weep not for me, though I have gone into that gentle night. Grieve if you will, but not for long, upon my soul's sweet flight. I am at peace, my soul's at rest. There is no need for tears, for with your love I was so blessed. For all those many years, there is no pain, I suffer not. The fear is now all gone. Put now these things out of your thoughts. In your memory I live on. Remember not my fight for breath. Remember not the strife. Please do not dwell upon my death, but celebrate my life. Please join me for a few moments of silence.
We said goodbye to Mom on a beautiful day in October. The sun was bright, and the sky was completely cloudless, and but it was cold. There was no mistaking what time of year it was. Fall was just starting, and the leaves were just beginning to turn and fall away. I know all this because I was actually here at the time. Most years, I would travel from California, where I now live, to visit Mom on her birthday. And this year was going to be somewhat special because my daughter, her granddaughter, is in her last year of college in Pittsburgh. So I wanted to make a big event of it. I traveled out here and went to Pittsburgh to scoop up Olivia, and then we had a nice little party at the senior care center where Mom was living. We got, cupcakes. We closed down one of the public rooms. I wanted a piñata. And that particular day, Mom wasn't feeling well. So instead of the common area that we were using, we all repaired to Mom's apartment. And things just went along swimmingly. Mom was really happy to see me, to see Olivia. But she, again, wasn't feeling all that well that day. And in fact, she spoke her last words to me that afternoon. She said, "I'm so happy to see you and Olivia, but I feel like I'm slipping away." And we put her to bed, and 3 days later, the leaves turned and began to fall away. My wife says that Mom waited to see me one more time. I think Mom was actually waiting to see my daughter Olivia, not me. You can go home. We won't know, what the real story is, of course, but Mom certainly had the tenacity and the love to pull it off. I got the call about Mom from my sister. I was actually staying at the house at the time. And as soon as I put the phone down, I thought, I hope somebody got a recipe for brownies. A little while later, I went over to the piano bench to see which of Mom's collection of musical treasures might be appropriate for this day. Want to know what Mom had in her piano bench? There was a large collection of Tomm songs. And as progressive and open-minded as this church is, I don't think Pastor would have let the Vatican rag fly. So there was also, what was it? Junk Food Junkie by Larry Gross. This is all true. And there was also, and I am not making this up, Drop Kick Me, Jesus, Through the Goalposts of Life by Kinky Friedman. Wasn't that funny? Anyway, as none of these ululations was appropriate for today, you're going to have to make do with Bach and these other guys. When I was in high school, our family got to know another family. Consisted of mom, dad, and 3 little kids. Now, we 2 sets of kids didn't have a lot in common because Erica and I were teenagers, and the 3 little kids were in elementary school. But the parents became fast friends and remained so for years and years and years. And the mothers became especially close. I don't want to use real names here, so let's call them Dan and Roseanne. Mom and Roseanne became very good friends. Over the years, it became clear that the marriage between Dan and Roseanne was somewhat strained. What we didn't know until much later is that the reason it was becoming strange is that basically Dan was a controlling, manipulative, abusive maniac. Things got so bad that Roseanne was actually in fear of her life. She really thought that Dan was either going to erase her himself or have her done away with. So one night, in the middle of the night, Roseanne packs a couple of bags, bundles up the kids, and they sneak out of the house, and they walk a few streets over to where there's no street lights, and they waited. And they waited for the car that was going to pick them up. And right on time, there's the car, comes out of the dark with the lights off. My dad is at the wheel, and Mom is riding shotgun. And they open the doors, bundle everyone into the car, and they got the hell out of there. And my parents boarded them at their home for months so that Roseanne and the kids could be safe while she got a divorce and could find another place to live. Fast forward to today, those 3 little kids are now in their late 40s at least. Roseanne remarried a perfectly decent and good man, and they now live nowhere near here. I don't know what happened to Dan, who cares? At my age, it's a rare thing to discover something new about your own mother, and rarer still to be amazed by what you discover. And what we discovered is basically that Mom was a hero. Well, they both were, of course. But it was Mom who set the whole thing up. I have no idea how they communicated, Morse code, whatever. But these 2, were the most unlikely of heroes. They certainly didn't look the part. Dad looked like what he was, which was a retired bureaucrat. And Mom weighed 100 pounds soaking wet. 105 with the wig. And they were also the most, absolute kind of heroes because they never sought recognition for what they were doing. They were just doing the purest thing, which was, protecting someone they loved. And they did so at considerable risk to their safety and property. And here's the cool part. This happened 30, 35 years ago. We knew nothing about this. We never knew any of this had happened until just a few months ago when we talked to Roseanne. And she told us the whole story. So, the very fact that they were so quiet about this suggests to me that maybe there are other great acts that Mom pulled off that we have yet to find out about. Speaking of quiet heroism, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my sister, Erica, who for 8 years was Mom's sole caretaker. She moved in with Mom and took care of everything, every little thing for Mom's day-to-day care, getting her to the doctor, making sure she had her medicine, made sure she ate enough, washed her hands, because she wasn't doing that, drinking her water, all of this while running her own business. And even when Mom went into full-time care, Erica hardly missed a day to go visit her, just to go see her, to take her a library book or a newspaper or another friend to visit. And all of this while in the background also taking care of all of the financial and legal work. So would you all please get on your feet and give Erica the ovation that she so richly deserves. I'm out.
Whoa, man. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Margaret. Peggy. Pegster. Tiny woman, wig ninja, Peg, as most of you knew her. I knew her as Mom. My friend Joe likes to joke that my mom was so iconic that Steely Dan wrote a song just for her. If you don't know it, it's called Peg. Look it up. It's a great song. So my mom was an unorthodox mother. She was not the huggy, kissy, get on the floor and play Barbies with you, come to the door in an apron with a plate of cookies after school. My mom was an intellect. She was a book maniac. She was a constitutionalist. She was a Unitarian. She loved this church. She found a tribe here. She found a home here. But it wasn't an easy type of relationship, having a mom like that. Well, all my friends' moms were pushing them on swings and playing jacks with them. My mom was directing me to the dictionary if I asked her to help me with spelling words. So one of the things I always found interesting about my mom was when she would leave to go somewhere. My mom was very active in volunteer work. She worked. When she would leave, she would just leave. She would not say, okay, I'm leaving. I'll see you in a couple hours. All you heard was her chair scrape on the kitchen floor, her little feet step out the door, her tiny little car start, and off she'd go. Even if you were standing in the same room, she would just get up and go. So it was like, oh, okay, I guess Peg's leaving now. Sometimes she could be tough. She could be salty. She was very opinionated, but she was very strong in her core beliefs. Sometimes she was even offensive. But the one thing that my mother would always do, no matter what, is help you. If you needed help, she found a way to help you. And as evidenced by my brother, I guess probably a lot more than I ever recognized. So in 2015, I was facing the end of my own marriage. I was going to be getting a divorce, and I came and told her and said I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. And she never even missed a beat. She said, then you will move in with me. And I thought, wow, yes, I'll move in with her because I need a place to stay, me and my army of cats. And I was noticing that my mom was needing some more help. Things were not going along as they should. Things were needing worked on in the house. I was noticing that she was needing more help. So in the November of 2015, I packed up my cats and my stuff, and I moved in, and I changed her whole world around. And if you knew my mom, change was not an easy thing for her, but she did it. So life is going along swimmingly. As time goes by, I'm noticing the car coming back. She was very involved, so volunteer program every day, 5 days a week, Saturday off, Sunday at church. And I'm noticing the car coming back with more dings and more scratches, and one day she came back with a huge dent, and I'm starting to think maybe this is beginning to be a problem. One day my friend Joe came to pick me up to go somewhere, and my mom backed right into his car. And one day she came home with a mirror hanging off, and I thought, okay, it's time. And fortunately, her family doctor said, when it comes to that time, because taking the keys away from someone is a very difficult thing. Their independence is being challenged. Their freedom is being removed. And my mom needed that. Oy, does she need that? But her family doctor said, when it comes to that time, you make me the bad guy. You call me, I'll be the one to do it. So the day she came home with the mirror hanging off, I called the doctor's office, left a message, expecting them to call me back, set up an appointment so that he could kind of do the exam, take a look at her, and say, Peg, this isn't great. We're going to have to keep you from driving. It's not safe. That is not what happened. What happened was he sent a letter. Didn't tell me that he was sending a letter, just got a letter. I'm in my room. My mom's all the way down the hall on the other end of the house. She opens the letter, and I hear, I don't want to do this too loud, "What fresh hell is this?" And I thought, uh-oh. Ran down the hall. She's standing there holding up the letter, and her face is beet red. She's so angry. And I read the letter, and I put my arm around her. I said, Mom, the doctor obviously feels that this is something that needs to be done, and I have to agree with him. I don't think it's safe for you to drive anymore. Like a honey badger with rabies. So we talked about it. We set up a schedule. That's why I was there, to help her as much as I could, to take her to where she needed to go. And if I couldn't do it, I garnered the help of my friends. I hired caregivers. Everybody was so great. She got to where she needed to go. And after a rough first week of us traveling together and me not taking the proper directions, not going the way she likes to go, we got that all ironed out. And after a week, she came to me and she said, "You know what, honey, I've had a really, really good long life and I don't need to drive anymore. Thank you for helping me." And I put my arm around her. And I said, "You know what, Mommy, you are so brave." And she said, "Me? Who, me?" That little head bobbing around, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, you. Do you know how many people fight this? Do you know how brave it is to accept this change?" And she just kind of straightened her back a little bit. And I said, "It's a very brave thing to do. You let me move in with 6,000 cats. I upended your whole life. That's a brave thing to do." And I told her I love you every single day. But I saved the bravery statement for when she was brave. And on October 9th, 3 days after her 94th birthday, I have to give my own kudos to my brother. The day before, I actually had to have knee surgery. So he hauled me to the hospital, got me back, phone calls during the night from hospice telling us that Mom wasn't doing well. And that morning, my brother took me to the nursing home. He got me into my mom's room in a recliner so that I could be with her. So thank you for that. And I was able to sit with her, and I had that opportunity to tell her everything I wanted to say. And the last things I said to her were, "I love you, and you are so brave." It's a brave thing to face your mortality. And true to her nature, maybe an hour in, I didn't realize it, we had a friend stop to visit to say their goodbyes, and while we were chatting, the nurse came in, took a look at me, took a look at my mom, took a look at my friend, looked back at my mom and said, "Honey, your mom's gone." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Your mom is gone." I said, "Did my mom die?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Huh. She just left. She just left. She didn't say goodbye. She just walked out the door, got in her little car, and she left." My mom taught me how to be brave. And you all are brave for knowing her. But I just want to thank all of you for being a part of her life and a part of our lives. You've been so, so wonderful to all of us. And you're all so brave.
Peg grew up living in Pittsburgh in the Beachview neighborhood. I learned in one of the first houses built on that block. She lived there with her little brother Jim, her grandmother, and her mother. In 1944, her father died and left her mom with 2 little kids to bring up completely on her own. And her mother did many things to support Peg and the rest of the family. She cleaned buildings, worked at a cigar store, and took boarders into their home. Peg's most cherished memories during this time were the time spent with her grandmother. Peg would later tell her kids one of her favorite memories growing up was she would come home from school, go down the back steps, and come into the kitchen where her grandmother had a snack prepared for her, waiting for her. Her grandmother would make a snack for herself, the same snack every day: a slice of bread, a slice of cheese, and a beer. Peg would eat her snack and tell her grandmother about her day. She said it was one of the best memories of her life. After her dad died, she found solace in reading. She would go up to the 3rd floor in the attic, and she would go up there and read all night long when she was feeling lonely. The attic was her solace. When she was in school, they performed air raid drills regularly. I don't know if some of you know this or heard about this. It was a time when kids would hide under their desks, and then they would all gather in the gymnasium afterward. Well, in the gym, Peg would play the piano, and all the kids would sing patriotic songs. At their home in Pittsburgh, they had this old upright piano, but her mother couldn't afford to buy any music for it. So Peg would walk and go down to the famous store in Pittsburgh, Volkwin's, and she would spend time there memorizing the sheet music so she could go home and play it. She met her husband, Robert, at Pitt, the University of Pittsburgh, in a sociology class. They went on a date and got married. And that's all I heard about that. So soon after that, she got a job as an administrative assistant at Gulf Oil, where she loved the company and she loved the work. Peg's mind was a steel trap, a naturally organized mind, which came in handy for record keeping. So she would take the Pittsburgh Incline, a streetcar, down the mountain and into town, and together she and Robert built a house on Anderson Avenue in Pittsburgh. At the time, Robert worked for the Housing Authority, and pictures from that time showed the ways they entertained: looking stylish, drinking vodka martinis in Waterford Crystal, always a cigarette in hand. Doug remembers making an ashtray as a gift for his parents. Doug showed up 11 years after they were married, and Peg didn't have Erica until she was 38, something that was pretty unusual then. Peg was a rule breaker, though, and she did things her own way. Bob got a job that took them to Mercer County. They lived in Hermitage in the first housing development in Shenango County. During this time, she chafed against the suburban life. She chafed against it, and she missed Pittsburgh. She missed taking trips with her friends to New York to see plays. She never quite adjusted to the suburban life, and that actually might be one of her strengths. She found places to volunteer, and she read, read. She poured her passion into becoming a trailblazer. She was the first volunteer I learned for Meals on Wheels. Volunteered for the library, the League of Women Voters. She volunteered at the first recycling center in that county, which was across the field from their house. She taught the kids how to crush cans and not throw them away. Peg had a deep respect for the environment, conservation, animal protection, and human rights. Bob Seibold, a former U.S. diplomat and beloved member of this church, told Peg, in earshot of all company to hear, that Peg was the foremost expert on the U.S. Constitution he had ever met. She kept a copy of the Constitution on her person at all times, and she would routinely read it at the dinner table and in bed. She always encouraged the kids to read. Erica would crawl into bed while Peg read War and Peace. Peg had a variety of tastes in literature, though. She loved Mad Magazine more than the kids. She always found a way to educate. She taught Erica how to bake. She taught Erica and Doug how to sew, knit. She tried really hard to teach piano to Erica until both of their frustrations maxed out. She tried to pass on what she knew from her mother. It wasn't Barbies. It was how to survive, how to get by on rations. She loved Monty Python, loved Masterpiece Theater, and all the English shows. At first, the kids were not interested in the kind of television she watched. Peg didn't like much on television unless it was public television. She would also listen to public radio almost exclusively, where the kids were exposed to mind-numbingly obscure humor. Peg didn't give a lot of structure to the kids, but she definitely encouraged them. She would say, "Here you go, read something." She taught them how to live out loud. Peg, feeling uncomfortable in the suburban lifestyle for most of her life, made the kids feel uncomfortable in the lifestyle. And this made them fiercely independent people. Peg was a confidant growing up, and she was the only one that some people could talk to sometimes. And Doug would stay in touch with her frequently. After Bob, her husband, passed away, Peg spread her wings. She found this church right after, and this was where she found her tribe. She gave herself fully to her weekly routine: Monday, Meals on Wheels; Tuesday, Baby Bundle Crochet Club. Every day of the week, she had a volunteer assignment. Sunday was church here and Kravitz after. She would volunteer in the morning, come home, and read while she ate lunch. In the evening, she watched pre-recorded shows like Rachel Maddow. She would make herself one gin martini in the afternoon. She was in bed by 10 o'clock with a book. She operated like that for years and years and years until she couldn't. Peg was very opinionated and feisty. If she didn't like your opinion, you would know, and you would know often peppered with colorful language. She read basically everything, and this made her incredibly interesting. She filled her cup with reading, and she could talk about just about anything, and she would correct your facts and tell you to do your research. She was smart, loyal, prickly, but people loved her. People loved her spiciness, sassiness. She could be outrageous in some of the things she said. She could be offensive, but she would do anything to help you. Anything she could. One example of this is she would take animals from friends who couldn't take care of them and take care of them. Her children told me she ran an underground dog network. And, they added, she did this with cats too. She was a social justice warrior when it wasn't popular to be so. And she never became jaded, never. She was just as outraged in her 70s as she was in her 30s, maybe more so. She didn't throw out compliments often, but when she did, she meant them. She found people within this church community who were just as smart as she was, she thought. And she loved that. Peg will be remembered for always questing for knowledge, caring about the world and the people in it, thinking about human dignity. She taught her children to love all creatures, including animals from the time they were in the womb. She taught them how to approach petting a dog by using a stuffed animal, how to do that just right. She could never stomach injustice, abuse, or ignorance of any kind. She had a strong sense of being fair. In this world, we need to continue that passion. We need to continue that love, that spiciness, sassiness, feistiness, intelligence, and care. Please rise. For a hymn that Peg picked out, she loved this hymn. This is my song. It's in the gray hymnal. 159. 159. Please be seated. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for celebrating a great life with us this morning and this afternoon. As I said, there will be a reception downstairs. There's going to be coffee and snacks. There will also be opportunities to share with one another a bit more informally. And there is a memorial book downstairs. So if you want to put a nice note in there, please do. It'll be right there on the big table waiting for you. Thank you all for coming.